everyone, and welcome to another Camera Jabber video. Today I'm speaking to Andy Brown, who as well as a photographer is the lead singer of Lawson. Hi Andy, how are you?
Hello, are you okay?
I'm very well, thank you. Are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's good to see you. So whereabouts are you at the moment?
I am at home at the moment, like I suppose most people are. I live just outside London, so I'm sort of cooped up here with the fam, and it's been nice actually. It's been like a nice change, you know, sort of being able to reconnect, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'm right thinking that you should have been on tour at the moment.
Yeah, so we should have been on tour. Yeah, basically the whole tour got cancelled because of, you know, coronavirus and stuff. So we're planning on going on tour middle of May, right through June.
Right.
We're about to reschedule that, and to be honest, we don't even know when we're going to go back on tour now. So it might even be next year. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns at the moment. So as well as being a singer and a musician, you're also a photographer and you've developed a headshot business. So how did you get into photography?
So my wife's a photographer. We met probably about 10 years ago, and she was doing a lot of event photography and stuff like that. And I just sort of became fascinated by it, I suppose. And then also because I was in front of the camera a lot in the band, I was always interested in the process of it. You know, I'd always sort of watch when people were setting up lights and stuff, and you know, and sort of steal little bits and bobs, I suppose, because obviously we were lucky enough to work with some top photographers, you know, like sort of Rankins and Joseph Sinclair and people like that. So it's we were lucky in that respect. So I definitely feel like I just had, yeah, like an interest in it. And then when the band sort of winded down a little bit and we had a lot more time on our hands, that's when I became sort of obsessed with it, I'd say.
Right. So when you were being photographed, you didn't, I imagine, especially not with people like Rankin, you didn't find yourself sort of giving tips about how to get a better shot. You were very much learning at that time.
At that point, it was more the fact that I was learning. Yeah, I think, to be honest, well, I mean, I take all our pictures now for Lawson, basically. So I have an assistant. So I'll set everything up and have an assistant, and then the assistant will take the shot. But I feel like if I was to work with a top photographer now, it would probably be a bad idea, because I'd probably be either being like, oh, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Or I'd be maybe asking too many questions about, oh, you know, what's your aperture on? What have you got your ISO set to and stuff like that? So I think maybe it's a good idea that back then I was sort of still learning rather than actually being a full-fledged photographer, you know?
And did you sort of document any of your tours or anything?
Not really, to be honest, no. And you know what? It really upsets me because we did some incredible things with the band, you know, but we always at that stage, you know, we were signed with a, you know, Universal and sort of in that big cog of the record labels and that. So we always had guys with us, you know, we always took a behind the scenes photographer. We always took, and to be fair, my wife did a lot of behind the scenes for us too, but we always had a separate guy to come in and do things for us, you know? So I felt like, yeah, I mean, for instance, playing huge gigs like the O2, Wembley Stadium and stuff like that, now I feel like, God, like the footage that I would have got, you know? But I suppose that's just something that you have to live with.
Yeah. Do you think that would be different for the next tour?
Absolutely, yeah, because now the lads are like, you know, can you ever just put that camera down? Like, I feel like I've got a camera in my face constantly. But as I said, like when the band sort of winded down, I just sort of became like obsessed with it. Like even my wife was saying, like, you know, I don't see you because you just like you're locked in. I mean, this is like my sort of recording studio for music at home, but I've sort of turned it into a photography studio for Photoshop and retouching as well. But I sort of came obsessed with it and just sort of locked myself away. And I was like learning to retouch, you know, like, and I felt like I was sometimes sitting in front of the laptop for like 12 hours and just literally, yeah, just figure out different techniques and download like raw images online and retouch them and stuff. So I definitely became obsessed with it. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or not.
Well, it certainly helps with the learning process.
Yeah, and you know what? There's so many amazing resources online. It's like unbelievable because I've never really trained in photography. You know, I've never gone to photography school or anything like that. I just taught myself everything. And I feel like I always had the eye for it anyway. But I mean, the amount of stuff you can find on YouTube now is just insane, to be honest.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's a really good resource. And what drew you to headshot photography in particular?
I think it was because I really love the retouch side of it. So I'm not really that fond of like street photography or landscape stuff, you know, even though I appreciate it and think, wow, that's an incredible image. I wouldn't really know what I was looking for if I was doing those sort of shots. I feel like I'd just be snapping away at anything. But when I'm doing a headshot, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know exactly how the image is going to look afterwards. I know how exactly I'm going to retouch the image, how I want the light to fall on the subject's face and stuff like that, you know? So, and also with headshots, it's very important to catch a lot of character in the subject, because, you know, a lot of these people are going for auditions for characters. So, you know, someone might come to me and say, oh, I want to be like a villain, you know, I want to be like a dark character who, you know, is a bit mysterious. So it'll be my job to capture that and get that out of them, you know, as opposed to say like someone who wants maybe a comedy role and then you've got to capture that essence. So I just find that fascinating, to be honest.
So that must play a real part in how you decide to like them, I guess.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And to be honest, I use natural light and I use artificial light. So in my studio, I'm lucky that I've got like a huge floor to ceiling sort of like north facing window light. So it's like acts as sort of like a nice soft light. And depending on the obviously time of year and stuff, I use that. And then if I want to create something a bit more dramatic, then I'll set the lights up in a different way, or maybe use some black polyboards or something like that. But it's always just so fun, I think.
Great. Could we have a look at some of your images?
Absolutely. So this is an image I took for an actress who was in Wicked on the West End for quite a long time. So she did a 3-year stint in Wicked as one of the witches in Wicked. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
I haven't, no.
Yeah, there's like a good witch and a bad witch, and she played the good witch, basically. So this was a shot that I got for her, which I really like. So yeah.
Her eyes look huge in that shot.
Yeah, she's got amazing big blue eyes. And to be honest, the lighting setup on that was I didn't do this in my studio, basically. I did this on location. So she was working in a studio. She's from Wales. She was working in a studio from Wales. So I just basically took one light down to the studio and set up a little area in the back, basically. And we got that shot, basically.
And what would be your go-to lens for headshots?
I always use an 85mm. I mean, I'm a Sony user, so I have an A7R III coupled with the 85mm 1.4. I just think for me that is like a dream combination, you know. And if I want to get a little bit more of the body or whatever, I'll sometimes change to a 55.
Right.
For me, the 85 is the best.
So I'm guessing you use IAF to make sure you nail that focus.
Yeah, so to be honest, sometimes it's different. So I was always a Canon user in the past. So basically, me and my wife, we had a Mark II, a Mark III. We didn't end up going for the Mark IV because that's when we ended up changing to Sony. But I always just found it, I don't know. I mean, I think the Canon images look incredible and there's a certain look about them 100%. But I think with the Sony, I feel like just the way that technology has progressed, I feel like it's just so far ahead for me in terms of, and people might say, oh yeah, but it makes your job really easy and stuff like that. And in a certain way, it probably does. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you can use a tool that makes your job easier, then why is that a bad thing, you know?
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It'd be like being a singer or never using a mic.
Yeah, or not
you could sing really loud, but it's easier if you don't have to.
Yeah, or not using in-ear monitors, for instance, like having maybe, stage monitors or whatever, or you can have the in-ear monitors that are like, amazing technology and being like, oh, I don't want to use them because, I feel like it takes away the art or whatever. I think, yeah, but I mean, it's all personal preference, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is an image that I actually shot in natural light. So when I said with the studio before, I mean, I'll see if I can zoom in. I mean, these are just web sort of, I can't zoom in actually, but you can see the catch light in his eyes there. It's basically just basically a huge window in my studio. So that is a really nice tool to have basically because it gives you a lot of even lighting, just sort of spread across the face. And sometimes with headshots, agents and casting directors are sometimes not too keen on the image being too dramatic or too editorial. And even though I'm a huge fan of shooting in an editorial way, and I love dodging and burning, and I love, the light falling in a certain way, sometimes they just want to see what does the person look like, and I just want to see that in sort of the easiest way possible,
I guess it's like seeing the blank canvas of the
Absolutely,
face.
absolutely, because they want to know, well, could I use this person for a, for a guy next door, or could I use this person for a, a dark character or a mysterious character? So I think I think headshots are changing slightly, because I feel like the editorial ones are starting to come about more,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like, sometimes your traditional, just this is me, this is what I look like, is works a lot as well.
And you said that's a north-facing window.
It's a north-facing window, yeah.
So it is beautiful, soft light.
It's really soft. And to be honest, I do have to battle with it a tiny bit in terms of the white balance. When I get it into Capture One or Lightroom, it can sometimes be a bit green, or it can be, it sometimes does take a little bit of work. But when you get the light spot on, it is really nice. And as you can see there, it's like, there's no lighting at all. I do put a reflector underneath the chin just to fill the shadows underneath the chin. But yeah, I mean, that's literally just natural light. And
I assume that's a grey background rather than a black one or a white one, because you've got no artificial light to affect that.
Yeah, so it's dark grey. It's that one is actually a bed sheet. It's a dark grey linen bed sheet, and as you will have seen in the last image. So this is more like a textured backdrop. I have quite a few different textured backdrops. And that's actually a textured backdrop, because I think I shot that at probably like f8, so I keep the detail in the backdrop. But with these shots, you can sort of, I think because it's maybe at like f1.8 or f2.8, I sort of just hang anything I want in the background to create sort of that more shallow depth of field. And I think that's just like a dark grey bed sheet basically. But I actually think it complements this guy really well, the eye color and the hair color and stuff like that.
Yeah, it works very well. So if you're going to use a linen sheet, you really need shallow depth of field or a really good iron.
Oh, absolutely. That sheet itself is absolutely creased terribly. Honestly, if you've seen it, you were like, oh my God, you cannot use that. But as I say, with that 85 millimeter lens, when you go at 1.8, it's just so creamy and so nice. And it's like, you could literally, and to be honest, I do shots as well. Like I'll pull up this shot. This is basically shot the same way. So I think I probably shot this at 1.8. This isn't natural light, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the background here. Like I can't actually remember what it was, but I feel like this is maybe just on the left of here is like a sort of a light stand, like just sort of like, and I just sort of like, when you put certain things in the background, it like, I don't know, it kind of, some people might say it's distracting, but I actually feel like it pulls focus to the face a little bit more. But it's just such a nice lens, that 85 mil. If there's any Sony users out there, I would honestly recommend it so highly.
And actually, I mean, that's a light stand now, I know, but it looks like a shadow from a window.
Yeah, it looks like a window. Yeah, it looks sort of like, I mean, it's so interesting, really. And obviously, I like to follow a lot of other headshot photographers on Instagram and stuff like that. And with a lot of those guys as well, there is like clutter in the background, basically like silver clutter, white clutter, just to give the picture something a bit different and make it a little bit more interesting, But I suppose it's nice to be able to do, the thing for me is I like to be able to take on a few different styles. So, I mean, I think most people in the headshot world would probably describe this image as more a musical theatre type image. And I think with the musical theatre type headshots, there is a lot more clutter in the background, a lot of lights. Sometimes you backlight it a bit. So I feel like it's sort of nice for me to just take different styles from a lot of different sort of headshot photographers and just sort of, and just sort of, then you can give the client whatever they want, basically. So this is a shot that I also did natural light. So this is the same spot as the gentleman I just did. Again, you can see the catch light there. It's like, that's the window basically. And basically when I shot the headshot for this woman, she wanted to be like line of duty, sort of like authority, like sort of maybe a policewoman or something like that. So we had to capture that in the sort of the stance, the way she's very sort of like, she was stood up for this photo as opposed to sat down. A lot of my clients sat down. And basically it's a bit more of a sterner expression as well, to sort of show the, don't mess with me sort of vibe in this shot, I suppose.
That's funny, because as soon as you opened that image, I instantly thought of Line of Duty.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. I mean, that means I'm doing my job correctly then. So I'm glad you've said that, because basically that's what she wants. And also it goes into like the wardrobe as well, because it's obviously my job as well to pick an outfit that suits a certain character as well. So there's a lot that goes into it, I suppose. But that's why I love the headshot so much, you know.
Do you ever find that the actors, they have their own ideas about clothes, and you have to convince them to wear something else to fit more closely with the aesthetic that you're going for?
Sometimes, yeah, because it's a hard one, that, because you want the client to feel comfortable, but you also have to use your expertise and say, well, you know, if you want to be, you know, a top police officer in line of duty, we're not going to put you in like a, you know, a tweed dress or something like that, you know. So it's like, sometimes to be honest, I'm lucky enough that everyone I've worked with has always been happy to take my guidance, you know, and I feel like actors are very easy to work with. In my experience, touch wood, I've never had any egos or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure people have horror stories, but I don't have any, to be honest. So hopefully that continues. And as I say, I think with this shot, we sort of captured that look perfectly, you know. And yeah, so I was really happy with it.
Great, yeah, it's a really striking image.
Cool. I'll do this. I'll show you a shot that's a tiny bit more editorial now. So this is sort of a more editorial sort of shot. This girl was a model, so she wasn't interested in actor headshots per se, but for me this was like a really great shoot because the retouching on it, like I think is something that I'm really proud of as well, because obviously the detail in the skin is so close, you know. It's like it's so important to nail a natural retouch, you know.
And how have you lit this?
This is lit with one light. You can see in the catch light there. So this is one light basically shone from above and a reflector underneath, basically.
Right.
And I just kind of think that's always a flattering light. I mean, I've started now lighting from the side. I'm putting a black board in so I can sort of get a little bit more drama. But with these beauty shots, I just think it's important to get as much beauty in the shot as possible. And you can see in the catch light there is a ring light as well, actually, but that was very much in the distance, and I don't think that was actually affecting the lighting in the shot. That was more just to see the catch light. If you see the big catch light there, just to the left of it is a little ring light catch light as well. So that was being used, but as I said, I don't think that had any sort of I don't think it made any difference to the shot in terms of the lighting itself, you know.
Right.
So I'll show you. So basically, this is the shot that I did for Lawson. So this is my band Lawson. So basically, this is what I did with an assistant, basically. And again, this is just a one light setup, but this was more the drama. So as you can see on the left, you can tell that the black board was placed to our right, because as you can see on the left side of our faces, that's what the shadows are, basically. So it's and I didn't really retouch these images, to be honest, because I feel like I just wanted them to be a little rawer, you know. So yeah, so that would be a shot that would be a bit less beautiful as such, and more sort of a bit more character and a bit more raw, to be honest.
Must have been a pretty big light.
It was absolutely massive, and basically I rented these lights. It was a studio, and they had all Pro Photo stuff, and I'd actually never used Pro Photo. And when he pulled out the softbox, it was the biggest softbox I've ever seen in my life. I think it was like twice the size of me. It must have been like a 12-foot softbox. Honestly, it was unbelievable. It took like 4 of us to set it up. We just shine the softbox to the right, and to be honest, the power of the light isn't that high, but there was loads of white in the room as well and stuff. So the light was sort of bouncing around a bit, and then I just placed that black polyboard just on the side there, and it just sort of created a really sort of dramatic, and it's quite classic as well, isn't it? It's just quite a classic. I mean, I love the black and white images on a white backdrop. I just think there's something vintage and classic about that, you know.
Do you find when you're photographing the band that they sort of give you the same respect that you would normally give another photographer, or do you have, you know, is the banter a bit difficult to control?
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, I don't know really, because I feel like the way I have to do it with the band is that we tether through Capture One and have the laptop right there for everyone to see. So as soon as the picture's being taken, it pops up, we all have a look. To be honest, we all have then creative control. Like I'll say to the boys, you know, what do you think about the shadows? Should they be harsh or should they be softer? And I feel like that's the best way to do it, because also helps my anxiety as well, because I kind of feel like if I took all the pictures on the back of the camera and then sent them over a link afterwards with all the photos on, it's awkward for them to probably say like, oh God, I don't like any of these shots, you know, because obviously we're like
Yeah.
a band together and we're best friends and stuff. So for me, it's just better if we review the pictures as we go, and then there's no surprises. Everyone knows what we're getting, you know. And also a couple of lads in the band are really creative in that way. Like the guy to the left of me there, the drummer, he's a videographer, filmmaker. So he actually does all our music videos and stuff like that. So he has a really good idea of lighting and stuff, and he understands all of it anyway. So I kind of feel like we work together as a team anyway on it, you know?
And I guess they've all seen a lot of photographs of themselves. They kind of remember the ones that they like, and they've got an idea of how to look and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, I mean, in the past, we probably would have paid like $5,000 for that shoot. You know, it's like, because, you know, when you sign to a major label, they just, oh yeah, let's do a photo shoot. How much we've got in the budget? Oh, we've got $5,000, and there'll be like 8 assistants. You know, there'll be like 10 guys on set, like sort of standing around doing nothing. So it's a bit like, I think we much prefer to do it this way now, because it's like, we know what shot we want. We know how to get the shot. So it's sort of like just so much easier to do that. And I'll pull up another shot from the shoot as well. And it's very just sort of, it's very clean. It's very basic. You know, there's really nothing wow about the picture, but it's just a classic black and white, and it does the trick for what we need it to do for, you know, for all the online sites and the streaming websites and stuff like that.
And that instant, do you just tell your assistant to just keep snapping away so you've got kind of a natural expression?
Sure, absolutely. In this instance, we always sort of say, let's do 20 shots where we're looking at camera, we're being serious, and then let's do 20 shots where we're like just talking to each other, laughing. I mean, sometimes just fake laughing. That's probably a fake laugh right there. So yeah, and then as I say, then we, you know, we might take 30, 40 shots, and then we'll go over to capture one, we'll review and be like, right, there's a great one, we'll keep that. Actually, let's try one where, you know, Adam, can you sit on a chair? Can you kneel down here? Can you stand like this? And I just feel like it just works so much better that way for us. So it's a really good way. And my assistant who we had on the day was great. He has he's a great photographer in his own right as well. So, you know, we're sort of being like, you know, let's capture this from below, or let's capture it from above, or, you know, so he sort of understands. That was actually taken with the 85mm as well.
Oh, right. So you had to be a bit further away.
Yeah. I just think it's just the best glass that I've got. So I just kind of think rather than maybe, you know, putting a 24-70 on and maybe compromising the image, to be honest, it probably wouldn't make any difference. I mean, I kind of feel like you could shoot on £100 lens and make it look good if you know what you're doing in Photoshop and you know what you're doing in the post processing. But I just love the way that 85 looks. I just think it's such a good lens. So he was stood like the other side of the room and just basically just took a bunch of pictures, and we sort of cropped in afterwards, basically.
I guess actually as well, with him being a bit further away, it helps you kind of get more into the moment, be a bit more natural.
Of course, because I don't really think the lads love having their photo taken as well. You know, it's sort of, I kind of feel like that with the headshots too. None of the actors that I work with like having their photo taken. I think that the idea of getting headshots for them is something that they have to do. But it's like, oh God, I've got to have headshots. So let's just get it out of the way with. Let's just get it over and done with, you know. Unless you're working with models, I suppose you love being in front of the camera. But I would say that most of the time, you know, people don't actually like having the picture taken. So that makes your job a lot harder, I suppose.
Does their attitude ever change if you get some pictures and you feel that they've played a really strong part in them actually getting the audition?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really fulfilling for me. Like, you know, as I said, with the girl I just showed you who did the, the Line of Duty type picture. I mean, if she phoned me and landed a role as, you know, in the next sort of police drama, that would make my life, that would be amazing for me, because at the end of the day, your headshot is the key to you getting in rooms. And I know that as well, because I'm also an actor. So my wife does my headshots, and I'll retouch them myself, but she'll take my headshots, and it's sort of, you'd be amazed the amount of times you don't get in a room just because of that headshot, or you do get in a room just because of that headshot, you know? So it's very sort of unfair really, because you've got to sort of sell yourself with one picture, you know?
So you mentioned that you really like the retouching aspect of your photography. So you're going to take us through what you actually do?
Yeah, I'm basically going to use a picture of myself because I haven't got any, basically haven't spoken to any of the clients to get permission to use before and after pictures. So I'm going to use this picture of myself. So basically, I actually didn't do too much to this picture. I did a little bit of editing first of all in Lightroom. So maybe just up the shadows slightly, bring down the highlights, just sort of very, very simple edits.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the after, and then this is the before. Oh, hang on. It's taking a minute to load because I'm sharing the screen. Okay, so this is the before shot.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the retouch process has to be as natural as possible. I'm not a huge fan of sort of like blurring the skin and taking all the texture away and making it look not real, you know. So
yeah,
I mean, my technique really probably comes in steps. So the first step will just be the blemish removal, which will be this stage. I mean, and you probably can't even really notice it, but it's sort of just very subtle, just removing a few little blemishes here and there.
yeah.
And then the next stage is a stage called frequency separation,
Mm-hmm.
which is a retouching process basically that I use quite a lot just to change the color. So if you look just sort of underneath my eye there's a little bit of gray underneath my eye. With the frequency separation, I'll just turn that on now. You can see that just sort of makes it a little bit more normal color of the skin, if you know what I mean.
Brightened it up, but
just
it still looks very natural.
Absolutely, under the eyes, and there's still a little bit of gray under the eyes there, so I'll then go in with the dodge and burn layer then. So basically the next layer is the dodge and burn layer. I'll just turn that on now, and that is sort of that's before and after. So that's sort of basically that's quite a dramatic change there, but basically it's the shadows and the highlights. So basically I'll turn it off again. As you can see to the right there, you can see there's quite a few shadows by sort of like my mustache area. It's quite heavy. And then when you turn the dodge and burn on, see they're softened a lot. So it's sort of like a process that I really enjoy, to be honest. And it's sort of going in there with the pen on a pad and just sort of basically softening out those shadows, and anything that looks like a harsh highlight, go over with a darker curve, and anything with a shadow, go over, boost the curves and the highlights and paint over the shadows basically. And then that gives you that nice sort of sort of even look. The next phase is the eyes. So to be honest, this image isn't actually massively sharp. Just looking back at it now, it's very shallow, this image. So I think it's maybe 1.8. This eye is more in focus. And also I've done a little bit of grain and stuff like that to make it look more vintage in Lightroom. But if you can see in the eyes there, I'll turn it on now. See just a little bit of pop in the eye there. So there's the after, before, after. And that just gives us a little bit of, I basically sharpen the eye and just brighten it a tiny bit with curves. And it just gives a little bit more pop basically. So that's sort of it. And then the last layer I think might be a liquefy layer. Yeah, I just sort of, as you can see here at the top of my hair, I just basically pulled that in a tiny bit because that was just a bit distracting, I thought.
Right.
And that's basically it then. So that's just sort of, so that's the, the before and then the after. So it's that's sort of the process behind that one.
And how long would that take you roughly to do all that?
When I first started, I probably would have been sat at the computer for an hour doing that. I would say now it takes me 10 minutes.
Right.
So
you got practiced at it.
Yeah, and that's what I said about being obsessed earlier. I just sort of became obsessed. I must have retouched about 2,000 pictures in the last year, just sort of and hard ones as well, ones that have really bad spots or bad acne or bad dark circles, stuff like that. So it's very important for me to just try different types of retouching and also different techniques. As I said, with dodge and burning, that's something that I only discovered maybe like 6 months ago. And just, and to be honest, there's so many different ways to retouch anyway. Like I know a lot of people use the clone tool a lot, or spot healing brush and sort of sample good parts of the skin and replace the bad parts of the skin with the good parts of the skin. But just this way of retouching just really works nicely for me,
I think that's one of the interesting things about Photoshop. There are quite a few ways of achieving the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, I'm not like actually, if you ask me the technical details behind some of the stuff, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you. You know, if you asked me to explain frequency separation to like, for instance, I'd probably be like, I don't actually know what it means. I just know how it
Yeah.
looks. You know, for me,
Yeah.
it's all what my eye is looking at, and if that looks
Yeah.
right, then that's right. You know, so it's
Yeah.
I might have another image actually I can open here of my wife as well.
Okay.
Okay, so this is one I did of my
Mm-hmm.
wife. And this is maybe like retouched a tiny bit more
Mm-hmm.
with the dodge and burn, but it's like, again, it's sort of the same processes, you know. So it's like, so I'll turn off the layers. So basically, there's the dodge and burn layer right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of just softens the shadows, and then it's so, and I think I did a frequency separation layer. So yeah, just sort of that's actually just a little bit of a liquefy layer.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, it's for me, I think the best thing that comes from retouching is just practice, just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely working on as many different images as you possibly can, and just figuring out different techniques and stuff like that, basically.
And you do your black and white conversions in Photoshop rather than Lightroom?
Sometimes I do them in Lightroom or Capture One. Sometimes I do them in Photoshop. So, for instance, the black and white Lawson one that you just seen, that was a Capture One conversion, and I actually retouched the picture after I'd made it black and white, because I knew that picture was going to be black and white. I did not want to make it color at all. So, but with this one, yeah, I literally do the conversion in Photoshop. I mean, I have a couple of presets that I use that I've created myself and I've sort of collected over the years. And sometimes I just actually use the black and white one that's built in, because I just think it's really good, and then just play with the colors, maybe to bring down the reds to make the skin a bit darker or whatever. So I just kind of feel like it's the built-in features on Photoshop are just, still sort of blow my mind on a daily basis, to be honest. I just think they're brilliant.
And it is nice that you can apply it as a layer as well, if you want.
Absolutely, that's the thing. And that's the thing about all these processes. They're all non-destructive. So, if you want to go back and, actually sharpen the eyes a bit more, or tone down the dodge and burn, you can, so it's like, that's what I love about it. And that's what I also had to learn, through doing it. When I first started, I was doing quite destructive editing. So like, so basically I couldn't go back and change it. And then I'd have to be like, I'm gonna have to start again, basically. And, you have to make mistakes like that, basically, to figure out how to, what your process is, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Mistakes like that you really learn from, don't you? Because you don't want to have to repeat all of that.
Absolutely. And especially when you're first starting out and it's taking you like an hour to retouch an image anyway,
That's great. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us today. It's been really interesting to hear about your approach to photography and see what you do with your retouching.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
See ya.